Teacher, tell me, how long does it really take to prepare for my IELTS or my PTE test? In this video, we're going to answer this question. To better explain this point, I want to share with you my story on how I prepared for IELTS and for PTE academic, and hopefully this will give you a few hints as to how long it might really take. So if we go back, a few years ago, when I was finishing high school, all my friends back home in Venezuela, they were getting ready to enter some of the main universities at home. For me, my goal was to get a really high IELTS score so that I could come to Australia. I was aiming for an overall of 6, I believe, at the time. While all my friends were studying for, the math entry exams, history, Spanish, and all the rest of the subjects, what I was doing was basically reviewing my grammar, learning about the IELTS test, checking the test structure, basically doing maybe the things that you're doing, checking this video because you need to take the exam. I was doing the exact same thing a long time ago, when we didn't have YouTube and all the rest of it. So then, time passed, I took my exam, and looking at the bright side, I got an overall of 7, so that was enough, or 6.5 maybe. 6.5 to 7 was my first attempt ever. That was enough so that I could skip the English exam preparation course offered by the university. So I came to Australia, and then I basically started right away the foundation program, which is like the program that you take to basically, let's say, like validate your studies from back home. Because in Australia, there is year 12, and in Venezuela and in a lot of countries that doesn't exist. So I had to basically do 1 full year of foundation studies, which actually was really good practice, and I had to skip the English study, right? Then I had that score, let's say overall of 6.5. Then time passed, a few years passed, I stay in Australia, I start doing my bachelor's degree, life is good, doing a bit of work, mainly working part-time as a cleaner. This is important in the story. And then, look, I do my exchange semester in Japan. This is like after 3 years of being in Australia, and when I am in Japan, I said to myself, hey, why don't I go and take the test again? There was like a deal with the university. I don't really know exactly what it was, but I knew I had to take IELTS in the future for my PR in Australia, to extend a visa. So I said, you know what, I'm going to just go to the test and I'm not going to study anything because I have been living in Australia for 3 years, so most likely my English improved a lot. And to my surprise, the score that improved the most was speaking and listening. My reading score didn't improve much, and my writing score basically stayed very similar, I think actually the same. This was in the academic module. And then after that, I came to Australia, I finished up my bachelor's, and I had this idea on my head of I want to become a teacher, I need to get points for my PR, and basically I have to really do one of these 2 exams. And then, people said to me, oh, do PTE, PTE is really easy, which it isn't that easy, but that's another video, So I was told, do PTE, give it a try, and I said, okay, why not? I did PTE once, I got 4 bands with 70 plus. So I thought, okay, I need 79 on each band, why not keep going with PTE? Then what I did was a bunch of study with PTE, grammar, and this time it's when I took my English study really, really seriously. I'm talking serious like when I was back home getting ready to come to Australia. And this happened maybe around 5 years after being here. So my first few years was more like, obviously, migrant life. It was study work, saving money for university. Whenever we had holidays, the holiday was a good time to do overtime, maybe try to get another casual job, and then continue that cycle, So it was when I said I need to get my PTE for my PR because I need 79 plus, I need to show a superior level of English, that I said I'm gonna go all in, and I was super, super focused. I said to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I said, look, no going out, I need to study, I need to focus on the test, we need to get this ready. No test, no visa, no test, no, let's say life in Australia. And then, I took it for a second time. I gave myself 1 month. So I got the score 70 in each band. I needed to do it again. I took 1 month of self-study, study. I did it again, and I got 3 bands with 80 and more. like an 85, 82, and 87, something along those lines. And one band was 78. Oh my God. Then I said, I'm really close. And I said, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks to practice, to get ready. And then, bam, 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 surprise, surprise. Then guess what? I took the test, and the final time, all the bands, I think my lowest band was 82. So I got like 90, 82, 87, 85. Boom, PTE passed. But when it comes to how long does it really take to prepare, the reason I tell you that it depends is because I did PTE once and I got 70 in each band. Maybe you're watching this video thinking, oh my God, Emilio, you're really good. And well, thank you, maybe yes, but also I took IELTS 2 times before that. I had done a bunch of English study before that. I finished my bachelor's degree before that. So it is a bit unfair if I just come up on the internet and I say to you, oh yeah, on my first attempt, I did PTE, I got a really good score. If I don't give you that backstory. The same thing happens with anyone getting ready. I have been helping students with IELTS and PTE for over 5 years, and every single person is different. Just last week, I had one student finish the bachelor degree back home, came to Australia, and this person was working for like 2 years. Then she needed to take IELTS academic, went back home, took IELTS academic, and she just got the score that she needed, right? An overall of 6. That's what the university was asking. And the thing is that at the end of the day, it is something that is very personal. It really depends. Sometimes I offer courses and the courses go for 2, 3, 4 weeks, preparation courses. And in the same course, I may have a student who takes IELTS academic for the first time, and that person gets an overall of 7. And then another student who takes the same course, same preparation, and gets an overall of 6.5. What's happening there is that every single person is different. And if I tell you that the student who got 7 is someone who has been studying English for a long time, who had had many exchange programs, maybe studied overseas, maybe has already like a lot of experience with English and took IELTS already, it is not the same to compare that person with someone who is taking the test for the first time, who came to Australia with 0 English. A lot of my students come to Australia and they don't know how to say something other than, hi, nice to meet you, my name is Emilio, I am from Venezuela. That's it. And then they come to me, we study together for a month, sometimes 2, 3 months, sometimes a bit more. And then, they take the test and they feel bad. And a part of me is like, why do you feel bad? It's a really good effort. The thing is that sometimes, we as humans, we compare with each other, or we hear people. I had a student telling me, oh, my friend finished her master's and, she got an overall of 8. And then a part of me is like, yeah, but you cannot compare yourself, your beginning, your story with someone who already studied English for over 5 to 10 years. It is not fair. So how long does it really take? I think that, as you probably noticed from all the stories, it really depends on the person, it depends on the target score, but I will give you some general guidelines. For people who have been in Australia and you can communicate on a day-to-day basis, maybe you have done some English study, maybe you have reached an intermediate level. For the vast majority of people to get a score of a 6 to a 6.5, or sorry, let's go back, let's say a 5 to a 6, 6.5 in IELTS, or maybe like a 40 to a 55 in PTE, you might be looking at anywhere between, as a minimum, let's say 2 months, so like 2 to 4 months, I think would be a reasonable time frame. You don't want to go into the exam in a rush, you don't want to just do cramming and then go into the test, because that's not going to be good for you. If we are talking about someone who maybe has that score, let's say a 6 in IELTS, usually to go from a 6 to a 7, it may take roughly somewhere between, again, maybe like another 3 to 6 months. And now when we are talking about band 7 and more, it depends on the starting point, but it could easily take 6 to 9 months. Sometimes I've had people who tell me, Emilio, I'm going to contact you next year. And then this person comes up to me, we meet in class, they get an overall of 7, but they have been studying for a long time. So it all really depends on your level of English, your target score, how many times you have taken these exams, how comfortable you feel with the tests. I've had students that, guys, I could almost like bet money that I can tell you this person will pass the test with PTE and with IELTS. And something happens and maybe they get nervous, maybe they get stressed. I've had students telling me, I didn't like the way the examiner was asking me questions. I felt more pressure. Or I had someone, a PTE student, telling me, Emilio, I did a lot of practice when it comes to the writing section and I got a really difficult essay question and I went blank for a few minutes. And you know that in PTE essay you don't have much time. So all I'm trying to tell you is that you need to think about yourself as an individual and don't just go, oh, it is going to take this much time to get this score, because it simply doesn't work that way. It is the same thing that happens with like exercise, with diets. You know, I'm not a fitness YouTuber, but I cannot come and tell you, oh, try this diet. Maybe you try this diet and you lose 1 kilo. Maybe someone else tries the same diet and they lose 3 kilos. So it all really depends. Now, if you're watching the video up until the end here, you also may be thinking, Emilio, I don't know what exam to take. And this is where I'll tell you 2 things, well, actually 3. I'm sorry. One is that I help students in Australia or who want to come to Australia or maybe to Canada with their English so that they can pass IELTS and PTE. So if you're thinking of taking these exams, check the first link in the description down below and get in touch, because as I told you, I do individual classes, I do preparation courses, and every month I'm doing different types of courses. If it isn't a course, it is a webinar or basically, you know, different activities, and I'm here to help you out. I also have a Patreon page. You can also check that in the video description. The second thing is that if you're thinking to come into Australia, you probably need these exams, and maybe some of you, if you speak Spanish, maybe you need to translate a document. So if you need a native translation, get in touch. All my details are also in the description. So I'm a certified translator from Spanish into English and also from English into Spanish. So if you're watching this and you need a translation, please get in touch. Shoot me a message, shoot me an email, drop me a comment here on YouTube. More than happy to help. And the last bit I have to tell you is that some people wonder whether they should take PTE or IELTS. Now that we know that roughly speaking, as a minimum, maybe it would take 3 to 6 months to prepare, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, then you might be wondering what test is better for me. And for that, we have that video right here for you. Thank you so much for watching this one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, and I'll see you in this one right here. Take care, and bye for now.